to the Office Corner with H.C. Campbell. The show is packed with news, author interviews, specials all about you, the author. And now here's our host, H.C. Campbell.
Hi, welcome to the Office Corner with H.C. Campbell. As always, I'm your host, H.C. Campbell. I'm here taking a walk through my neighborhood, just thinking about all the new projects coming out this year, got a new show coming, which you'll hear about that later today. I want to take a moment to welcome you, and since it's a nice day among so many cold days, I thought I'd come out here and tape the show. On today's show, we have three, again, very powerful authors, as we do always. We have author Maurice M. Jr., which I had a wonderful conversation with. We have author, publisher Elissa Gabrielle, who's very beautiful, yet very talented and very driven. And then also, too, you'll also meet our Maurice not only a wonderful author, she's also the Author's Corner voiceover artist. And you'll hear her on this show, as well as my previous shows and future shows. So without further ado, let's bring you Maurice M. Gray after these messages.
When the Author's Corner returns, we'll get the ball rolling with author Maurice M. Gray Jr. Then we'll have a chat with author, publisher Elissa Gabrielle. Then we'll round out the show with me, author, show voiceover artist Almari Jonson. Stay tuned.
Have you checked out the new H.C. Campbell Productions website lately? It has new interactive features. More information on books, services, shows, and more. Check out videos, slideshows, and more at www.htcampbell3.net. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
What is H.C. Campbell Production, you ask? It's a collective of editing services, books, promotion, and more. Find out more about these services in addition to shows and columns at www.htcampbell3.net. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Welcome back to the Office Corner with H.C. Campbell. I'm standing here in front of the St. Louis County Library. Basically, this is where Skylar and I get our books, show you a couple of things in my neighborhood. But yeah, with Maurice M. Gray. Maurice and I had a great conversation. Very good brother. And despite the fact that we had so many Skype glitches, it still came out to be a good interview. Let's learn more about him, learn more about his books. Here's Maurice M. Gray.
I've been writing probably since about 4th grade, but writing seriously I picked up right after college. I remember writing a short story. It was supposed to be a short story, but then I kept on writing. Next thing you know, this short story just kept growing and growing, and I figured out, okay, this is not going to be any parts of a short story. I might as well just keep going and try to make a novel out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And from the time I started writing it to the time I actually got it finished, revised a couple of times, published, it was 10 years from idea to actual book.
Wow. See, that's pretty cool. So, how long could you say from the time until now you've been writing?
From the time of that short story until now, I'd say that's 23 years.
Wow. See, that's pretty cool. That's definitely pretty cool. Now, I want you now to first start telling me about, first tell me about all of your titles leading up to your current one.
Okay, the first one, the one that took me 10 years from start to finish, that's called To Whom Much Is Given. That was a story that it just wouldn't let go of me, really. It was supposed to have been a short story. It started off as just an idea I had. For some reason, I had a phrase stuck in my head, the woman of your dreams. And then something made me flip that phrase around, say the dreams of your woman. And I got this idea of a man dreaming about a woman he's never met before, and then he goes out someplace and then he meets her. That was the idea, and I just took that and ran with it and turned that into To Whom Much Is Given. I wound up with two people who are, for lack of a better term, you call them modern-day prophets. I mean, they receive dreams and visions from God. Those dreams and visions pull them together, but not just so they can start dating. They're being pulled together for a reason. Like to deal with a third character who's probably the most insane character I'll ever create. This is a woman I would never want to meet in real life. She is absolutely out there. She will do whatever it takes to get what she feels she deserves.
Wow.
And in this case, she's going to commit a mass murder in order to get what she wants.
Ooh.
And my two characters are called in by their dreams and their visions to stop her from what she's doing. That was the first one. The second one, the sequel to that, is called All Things Work Together. And that one, I always said if I ever published a book, I wouldn't stop at just one. Because I'm the type, if I read a book and I like it, I want to know what happens next. And there were two characters in the first book who I really didn't get to do much with, the best friends of the two main characters. Max and Donna were the main characters in To Whom Much Is Given. Their best friends were Fred and Yolanda. And I had so much fun with these supporting characters that I just had to give them their own book, so they get the next one. That was All Things Work Together. And through the process of the first book, we got to know a little bit about those two. And I was able to fill in more of the gaps. I mean, they were just a supporting cast while Max and Donna carried the action in the first one. And the second one, they find themselves in an adventure all their own. I mean, Fred finds himself interested in Yolanda. Yolanda is wondering if their friendship could actually turn into something, and then she meets another guy, so we have a love triangle going. And she's a school teacher. One of her students is kidnapped.
Oh.
And it takes both Fred and the other guy, Raul, it takes both of their skills and their knowledge together to find the student and bring him back home safely. They can't stand each other, but they have to work together, or else this boy is probably going to die. That was All Things Work Together. In between those two, I got into an anthology project. It was called Blessed Assurance. I was able to work with 5 other Christian authors. The idea behind that was that each of us took an account from the Bible, and we did a modern-day short story based on that account. I chose to do the parable of the Good Samaritan. Wrote a story called Traveling Mercies. It was pretty interesting. I was trying to figure out how could I bring this into a modern setting without changing anything that was already written, but giving it a modern flair. I think it worked out pretty well. There's a man coming back from a road trip. He was driving back. I think he was driving back. I think he was headed towards Connecticut. Stopped at a rest stop and found himself beaten up and carjacked. And the most unlikely person to pick him up off the street and help him and get him to the emergency room and everything like that was a prostitute. That story was rather interesting for me. I wanted to see how that would work. Because I remember reading it, when I read that story, the account of the Good Samaritan, the priest walked past, the Levite walked past, and then somebody who was supposed to be the man's sworn enemy was the one to pick him up and take him to safety.
Wow.
But to do that in the modern day context, I chose to make it a person that he probably would have walked right past in his regular everyday existence. It was pretty interesting to work with that. And just before I got into Blessed Assurance, I wound up with a project from a brother who went to my church at the time. He said he felt called to write a book about his life story, but he had no idea how the writing process worked. He just knew he had a story to tell, and I had just finished talking to my pastor about what I was doing with To Whom Much Is Given and the other projects I was thinking about doing. And he put the two of us together. I wound up helping him write his story. His name was Livingston Lee, and I wrote a book for him entitled "I Really Didn't Mean to Get HIV." It worked out pretty well. He had a pretty good speaking ministry. He took the book with him when he went out and shared his experience going from being what he considered a normal person to becoming a heroin addict, to getting delivered from the heroin addiction, to becoming a born-again Christian, and then discovering after he got clear of all that trouble to find out that he was HIV positive. It was a pretty good story. He's moved to Virginia now. He's still with us. He's still out there helping people, hopefully helping people avoid the situation that led him to where he got to. He even didn't expect to still be living at this point, but he's still around. He's still out there helping people to the best of his ability.
God is good, definitely.
The next thing I did after All Things Work Together was another anthology. It was with 13 other male authors called The Soul of a Man. It was with Elissa Gabrielle, her company, Peace in the Storm. And that was a very interesting project. Each of us was asked to write a short story or an essay or a poem, just something to show people the positive side of black men. I mean, every time you turn on the news, somebody's going to jail for this, going to jail for that, escaping going to jail. There's more to us than just going to jail and being criminals.
Absolutely.
Elise is doing The Soul of a Man was her way of letting us illustrate the positive. And for that one, I wrote a short story that I had on the back burner for quite a while. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it into a full novel. I didn't know if I was going to keep it as a short story, but it was pretty interesting. I wrote about a brother who used to be out there running women left and right. He got sick of that. And once he got saved, he decided it was time for him to apologize to as many of these women as possible. He knew he'd never get to them all. But there came a point where he's in charge of hiring temporary employees for a company he's working for. He looks up and lo and behold, here comes a woman. The one woman he dealt with in the past, he didn't do her wrong, she did him wrong. So now he's dealing with having to be her boss, dealing with that whole uncomfortable situation. So that was an interesting one to work with. They call that one long term. Okay, yes, in long term, he finds himself hiring a woman as a temp. He's very uncomfortable with this because he just gotten himself accustomed to apologizing to various women he had done wrong in his past. But this is the one who did him wrong. So now he has to deal with the uncomfortable situation of having her around, of not knowing how to really be around her. I mean, okay, he knows he's like, I'm her boss. I've got to keep this professional. At the same time, she makes him uncomfortable because he could never really figure her out when they were dealing with each other. So he's trying to figure out, okay, so I know I'm different now. Is she different? Is she still going to, is she still on her own agenda like she used to be? How's this working? So he's pretty much off balance. She's the long term was one of the more interesting stories I did. Dealing with a gentleman who used to be pretty much a hellraiser. He was out there just running women left and right, and it got to a point where it got old to him. He got saved, he got delivered from all that, and when he would run across a woman who he did wrong in the past, he would apologize to her. But now he's in a position where he's working for a company, he's in charge of hiring the temporary employees, and one of them that he hires, she comes in, he realizes that this is somebody he also dealt with, but this isn't somebody that he did wrong. This is the one woman who did him wrong instead. He's in a really uncomfortable situation, trying to deal with this. He's trying to figure out, okay, is she still the same as she used to be? Is she any different? How's this going to be? How comfortable can we be in a boss employee situation with all this unspoken stuff still between us? So that was a pretty interesting story to deal with. That was my first time really digging into office dynamics. Usually I would just touch on a person's job and not really stay with it. But this is the first time I really set most of the story on the job.
Yeah,
and after that, another anthology. I don't know what it was about these anthologies that drew me in, but I kept on doing them. The next one was called Home Again, with an author called Wanda Campbell. There were about 9 of us involved in that. And the full title was Home Again, Stories of Restored Relationships. And that tells you exactly what the anthology was about. Every story was dealing with a character who had some kind of a broken relationship in their life, whether it's with their parents, with a sibling, with a wife or a husband. Some kind of a broken relationship, and the only way these relationships can be restored is by these characters trusting in God to help them do it. So my story in that is called Family Matters. And I introduce a character named Eric Dawson, who's going to be important in my next book. I chose to introduce him there because I knew this next one was coming. I wanted to give some backstory on him before he headlines the next novel. So he and his mother have had a falling out. When the story picks up, they haven't spoken in almost a year. And it might have kept on going, except for he's in a horrible car crash, and they're not sure if he's going to live or not. In a situation like that, their petty little disagreements all of a sudden aren't so important. So it comes down to, is Eric going to live? And if so, how are he and his mother going to work the situation out? Now, there was a pretty interesting family dynamic about what led them to this point, what kind of a disagreement got them to where they are. And I mean, Eric's in a unique situation. He is an only child, but he's an only child who has a whole bunch of siblings. You know, his parents took the whole concept of him having play brothers and play sisters to a whole nother level. His mother especially, she's worked in education all of her life, and anytime she runs across a student who doesn't have anybody, she'll pretty much mentor that student. And as a result, Eric has about 14 play siblings. So he's in the unique situation of being an only child with about 14 brothers and sisters. And the times in his life where he felt like they got more attention than him. And that was the basis of him and his mother falling out over something that otherwise they could have worked out.
Right.
So once they get to the bottom of it, they're able to restore their mother-son relationship. And between the short story that I put there and another one that I'm working on right now called Like a Brother, which gives another aspect of that whole family situation, I'm leading into my next novel, Female Problems. With Like a Brother, it's the story of one of Eric's play brothers, like the one he's closest to, a man named Jeremiah. And out of all these 14 whom Eric's mother has mentored over the years, only 2 of them ever showed any kind of romantic interest in one another. Jeremiah and one of his quote-unquote little sisters. He's been interested in her for years, but she can't see him as anything more than a good friend, big brother type, because she's too busy chasing after men who are completely wrong for her. It takes Jeremiah a while to get the memo that, look, I need to let her go. I need to let her figure things out for herself and not try to always catch her when she falls and everything, but she's always going to see him as nothing but a friend and a brother. If he doesn't let her figure some things out for herself. And some of the background of that story, I've also got Eric in there. I'm showing another side of how he got to the point where he found himself in a car crash. In Family Matters, that started off with him with the aftermath of him having gotten through this crash. In Like a Brother, you see a little bit more leading up to that time, a little bit more where Eric and his mother started drifting apart from each other, and how close Eric and Jeremiah have been over the years. Now, between those 2 stories, those are going to be a good lead-in to the novel I'm working on now called Female Problems. And this one's been a lot of years coming, too. I think I've had this idea probably before I even finished with To Whom Much Is Given, but I knew I needed to let that one go and focus in on To Whom Much Is Given and get that one finished. Female Problems features Eric and 2 other men, like Sam and Garvey. These are 3 Christian men. All 3 of them are dealing with different issues regarding the female presence in their life. That's where I got the title from. I remember I was out at the mall one time and I heard some young brothers talking about women, but instead of saying women or girls or chicks or anything like that, they kept using the word females. I'm looking at them like, are you on Wild Kingdom or something? Why are you calling them females?
Right.
That's what's mine. That gave me the idea to call this book Female Problems, because these 3 men that I'm focusing on are having problems with the female presence in their life, or in Eric's case, the lack thereof. Now, each of them is going to have his own book. And Female Problems is Eric's book. And I've got one for Sam and one for Garvey. I've got them planned out, but the actual writing, of course, I won't get to that until I've got Female Problems done and ready to roll. But in this one, this is Eric's story. This is him recovering. Basically, he's recovering everything. That car crash literally killed him. I mean, he died on the operating table. They were able to revive him. So he's literally starting his life all over again, starting with a whole lot of physical therapy to help him get back to close to where he was. I mean, at first he died on the operating table. The doctors thought they weren't going to be able to revive him. Then, when they realized that he was out of danger, they started figuring out how bad the damage was. They figured he was going to be quadriplegic. Then he fooled them on that and started showing some more emotions. Okay, scratch that, he's going to be paraplegic. Next thing you know, he starts showing even more range of motion. They start believing, okay, he can walk again. Now, by the time we get to the start of the book, he's up, he's walking, but he's still having a lot of pain. He's still in physical therapy. A couple times a week, trying to get back as much of his mobility as possible. So, now during the time that he was laid up, he pretty much lost everything. He lost his job, of course he lost his car, and his girlfriend broke up with him while he was still unsure of what his status was going to be. And he was still, the doctors were still wavering between, is he going to be quadriplegic, is he going to be paraplegic? And she came to see him, and he let her know that, look, I don't know what's going on with me. This might be a good time for you to explore other options. Because she had admitted to him that there was another guy she was interested in, but she wasn't going to address that interest while he was still in the hospital. So he suggested to her that, he said, look, I'm not going anywhere for a while. You might as well explore this if this is what you really want. Then he was upset when she actually did it.
Mm.
But now he's trying to recover everything, basically. Now he's at the point where the doctors are clearing him to... At this point, Eric he's recovering everything. He's getting back in shape physically. He has to go out and get another car. He's got to get used to being in his own place again. Because when he was released from the hospital, he still had to do extensive physical therapy, and he needed to stay with his parents because he needed somebody with him while he was basically recovering everything. Everything from all the basic stuff that we take for granted, but basically is walking without having anybody else help you, taking a shower without any assistance. And when he got released from the hospital, he still had extensive physical therapy to do. And the doctors had him with his parents because of all the help he was going to need while he's transitioning from wheelchair to walker to being able to get around with a cane. So at the point where the book picks up, he's just transitioning back from his parents' house into his own apartment, which they had kept up for him while he was laid up. So now he's back into his own apartment. Now he's cleared to drive. He's able to get another car. The money was there from the insurance to get himself another car, but he just had to drive until he figured he'd wait and clear to drive. Got that taken care of. He's working with an attorney because the crash that happened to him. This was caused by somebody who was working for a national trucking company. Their driver was drunk at the time when he was out making a run, and he caused the accident that almost killed Eric. So Eric's going to have a huge settlement coming with. So he's working with an attorney on that. So that's another thing he has to wait on because these things can take a while. But now he's cleared to fully function again. Now he has to find himself a job. He has to get used to being back in the real world again, basically. So it's a struggle for him. And the one thing that he didn't count on was finding a good three-way friendship that will help him deal with all of his problems. He decided he was going to go to a comedy club just to get out and relax a little bit. He knew that one of the comedians was a member of his church. He didn't know the man, but he decided to go check this guy out and have a good time. And while he's leaving the club, this huge, obnoxious drunk guy decides to pick a fight with him. Now, keep in mind, the guy who's picking the fight is about 6'2". Eric is 5'4".
Wow.
And injured. So this is not going to be a fair fight. So, fortunately for him, the comedian has what's going on. He's trying to get a permanent gig at this club. He said, maybe if I help this guy makes trouble every weekend, if I help get rid of him, maybe the club will hire me on. And another guy who goes to their church happens to be there. He sees it too. So both of them step in. And Eric is doing okay when the guy is drunk and clumsy, so he's able to keep him getting hit. And he's actually doing okay against the guy, but he got a bigger. The guy's a foot taller. Eric is about to get hurt really badly. So until these two guys don't even know each other, don't know Eric, they decide for their different reasons to step in and get this guy off of him. And this forms their friendship. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Okay.
They start getting closer from this point on, and they're able to deal with their particular female problems. And the good friendship. Because Garvey's the farthest along, he's engaged, but he's having trouble with his relationship. He's wondering, okay, is this the right one for me? Are we going to make this work? Seems like all we ever do is fight and argue. And then during the process of their friendship, Sam meets somebody, and he's trying to figure out, okay, how do I get this right? Because the past couple of times he's had relationships, they broke up, and he's having a hard time figuring out why. The problem is Sam is a workaholic. I mean, he works hard on his job. He does a lot for his church. He's a member of a fraternity. He works hard with the fraternity. And that does not leave a whole lot of time for a woman. Women do not like to be second to anything.
Exactly.
And he's putting women third and fourth and expecting women to deal with it, and that's not working. So when he meets this one, she's not going to have it, and he finds himself unwilling to keep on doing things the way he's been doing. He's starting to see how he's been missing out. And he's learning the power of the word no. He said, don't let people put you into every committee or have you do every bit of overtime or what have you. Sometimes you have to have some balance in your life, and he hasn't had any. That's where his female problems are coming from, lack of balance. Now, Eric is the one, he's looking. I mean, he had a pretty good thing going. He was actually about to proposed to his girlfriend on the night when he had the car crash. So now he's having to deal with going from, okay, I was ready to settle down with this way to get married. He has to go from that to, okay, finding out from the crash that she wasn't what he thought she was. Now he's having to start all over again. And he's also dealing with what I call short man syndrome, which is something I'm very personally acquainted with. As a vertically person myself, I understand there are women out there who would prefer a man to be a lot taller. And Eric has seen a lot of that. He's thinking, what's the problem here? Is it everything else that these women are saying they want? I've got it, but I can't do anything about 5'4". So he's been struggling along those lines. So for him, his particular female problems are meeting the kind of woman he wants to spend the rest of his life with, and making sure that he is right for them when he meets them. So he's got quite a few misadventures going on in his dating life. So basically, we're following all three of them, but Eric is the focus of this particular book. This is Eric's book. Mm-hmm. And him recovering basically his whole life. Trying to figure out, okay, what do we do now? I'm starting all over again. The one thing Eric's got to figure out is, okay, do I want to recover what I had, or do I want to move forward in a completely new direction? So that's where Female Problems is going. I've had a lot of fun working with it. I'm revising it right now and looking to have it out, hopefully in June.
Okay. Cool. Well, I got a question for you, because that seems that we have quite a few things in common as far as characterization is concerned. It sounds like you're all about characters, and that's one of my major focuses in my books. Out of all that, who are your favorite characters in your books?
Who are my favorite characters in my books?
Mm-hmm. Or do you
I
just
have to say, Eric has become a quick favorite because Eric is probably the closest thing to me that I'll ever put in a book. I think I put more of myself in Eric than I have any other character. With the other ones I put, one of them I gave him a job interest of mine. Garvey, I've always had an interest in stand-up comedy. I've actually dabbled in it just a little bit. And that gives me crazy respect for people who do that for a living. I could not do that full time.
Me neither, right?
So my interest in comedy, Garvey got that. I've been that guy in church who's going to every committee and every ministry and burning himself out. I gave that to Sam. That, and again, I gave Sam my fraternal affiliation. I made him a Catholic. Mm-hmm. I'll put bits and pieces of myself and thinking characters like that. But Eric, I gave him a lot of me. Including being a short guy. I've given him a lot of my personality traits. So he gets to be a favorite by default. There's a lot of me in there.
Well, you mentioned right. Well, you just mentioned a couple times being a short guy. How tall are you, brother?
I'm 5 feet, and even 5 feet tall.
Oh, still though, man. You're a big writer, man. Because look at all these stories you wrote, man. Don't even worry about that, man.
Yep.
When
I was younger, I really had an issue with it. But now I'm like, you know what? There are better things to worry about than stuff I can't control.
Exactly. It's like God put you here for a purpose, and your purpose is doing exactly what it's doing, writing and serving. So you're doing very good.
Well, one of my favorite classic authors is Zora Neale Hurston. I absolutely love Their Eyes Were Watching God. It's one of my favorite all-time books. And when it comes to current authors, one of the perks for me of being an author and doing book events and traveling and things like that is I've actually gotten a chance to meet a lot of the authors that I currently read. I've met people like Sharon Ewell Foster was among the first that I got to meet. I love her work. When I did Blessed Assurance, I actually got to work with a lot of the authors who I'd already started reading. Victoria Patricia Kelly, Jack Thomas, with them. George Walker, he is hilarious. He was the first comedian for me. Her book, I'm reading her work. And I've gotten to Shonda Tate Billingsley, I've got to meet Vanessa Davis Griggs, all authors whose work I've been reading for a while now. Mm-hmm. And part of the process, I got to meet one author, Dr. Linda Bede. I actually had the chance to edit her book. Hers was the first novel I ever had a chance to edit. And she is a phenomenal author. I did her first book, Business Unusual. She has another one coming out soon, hopefully this year. And she's a really skilled writer. So these are the kind of people I actually get to meet now that, besides just reading their work.
See,
And I've also read folks Frank Peretti. And I've read some Karen Kingsbury. She writes pretty well. But yeah, and I recently started reading an author named Daniel Black. His work is pretty good. And I read a whole bunch of different genres, but most of the authors I named are Christian fiction authors.
And this is this is wonderful because you're speaking to a genre. See, my romance is a Christian fiction, so I think that's probably also why we kind of connect there, brother. So that's pretty cool. I like that. So.
Yeah.
So my next question, that actually leads me to my next question before I go back into your writing. The books have very powerful messages. From what I know of you, you're very deep, and you're always so deep. Where do you think that comes from?
A lot of the stories I just get them from everyday situations. I'm pretty sure that when I'm out and about, I'm pretty sure there are people out there who think, something's wrong with that guy. Why is he staring? Because I can see people walking past. Maybe they're just having a conversation. Maybe they're arguing. And I get to wonder, what in the world are they fighting about? Or what is this conversation, this intense conversation they're having? What is it?
Yeah. That's where I get a lot of my ideas from. Just observing people. Like I might be out somewhere, I can see a couple walking. They could be talking, they could be happy, they could be arguing. And I get to wondering, what is it that they're going on about? What's the situation? Next thing you know, I've got ideas going through my head about what it is they might be dealing with. I've got another story idea. I must have a whole, I can't even think of how many files I must have with ideas that I've written down that I'm going to get to later. Because I now know better than to try to work on more than one at a time. I'll never get any of them done if I try to do multiple ideas at once.
Again, you have that same problem I do. Too many ideas, too little time, but I better write them down. Say that again? No.
There are times I think I'm going to have to live to be 200 years old to get all these ideas finished up.
Oh, tell me about it. I know I will. I got too many ideas right now, so it's like, it's just crazy.
Exactly.
Well, let me move on for just a second. I'm switch gears for a second. Tell me about your company, The Right Vision.
Oh, Right the Vision. Yeah.
Right the Vision, I'm sorry.
I formed that company back in 2000 when I decided it was time to self-publish. That's where I published all my books through, all the ones that I've done myself. I did To Whom Much Is Given. I really didn't mean to get HIV. There's another one I did for a brother in my church called Ocean View. I did All Things Work Together. All of those came through Right the Vision. And I'm also, now that I've gotten into editing, I'll also do that through Right the Vision as well. One thing I've always been good at is grammar, spelling, punctuation, all those fun things that people seem to be losing a grip on with texting being so popular and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And besides that, I've read enough books to where I've developed a feel for what a good book should be like, how a book should flow, and what makes sense and what doesn't. So I've been able to channel all that into editing.
Well, in order to be a good editor, I'm sorry. Oh no, I was just going to say, you have to be a good editor. You have to be a good reader, have a feel for what you're reading.
You really do. It's definitely an advantage to be an editor who loves to read, and an editor who loves to read and who also happens to be an author himself. That's a real plus.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I'm editing for somebody, I try to give them the same level of service that I want when I'm being edited. And I know how it is when I'm going through with my own editor. And I want to make it as easy as possible for the person who I'm working with. I mean, I've got a pretty good editor that I work with. And sometimes I like to say I create a monster. And Dr. Linda Bede, who I edited for, I taught her a lot of things that I know, and now she edits for me. And she's just as ruthless as I am when it comes to editing a man.
I understand.
Let me get away with my action. That's just what I need when somebody's taking a look at it and say, no, this has to be the best it can possibly be. Don't cut any corners. And she keeps me honest. And I try to do the same thing when I'm editing for somebody else. And I try to keep a sense of humor about it. And I try to keep it a little bit light when somebody's got the same kind of mistake happening over and over. I try to make a joke about it, to kind of bring their attention to it, and say, okay, well, this is what I'm seeing in it. You're going to want to cut down on this. We use the same word about 14 times in 3 sentences. You're going to want to cut down on a few of them.
Exactly.
So, it's things like that.
Well, that I definitely understand. Trust me, as an editor, I do the exact same thing. What were some of the roadblocks?
Okay. For me, when I first got started, I tried to go the traditional publishing route. And I went to some writers' conferences. I got some good feedback on it, got some advice on how to make it better, started shopping it around. I wound up with about 30 rejection letters. And in the middle of that process, I met Patricia Haley. I found her book, read it, and I figured that, okay, well, her book is similar to mine. So whatever company published her, they might want to publish me too. So I contacted her to find out who her publisher was. And she told me about self-publishing. She had done it herself. And at first I really didn't want to, I was kind of resisting the idea. I really didn't want to have to do all that work. But the more I thought about it, the better an idea I thought it was. I was thinking in terms of, okay, how long would it take for a publisher to take it, and how much of it would they change, and things like that. The more I thought about it, the more I decided that I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I still have my excuses, like I don't have time, and I was working a TV guide at the time. I really didn't like the job all that much, but it was good work with benefits. I'm like, okay, I don't have time because I'm working, I'm this. And next thing you know, we got downsized within the severance package. That killed every excuse I had left. In 2000, instead of looking for another job, I took the severance package and went ahead and self-published To Whom Much Is Given. I've been off the races ever since. I mean, I've gone back, I've had other jobs since then. In 2011, I left the job that I was working. I was doing some HIV prevention counseling. And I left that job after 2011. Now I'm editing and writing full time, which is what I've really been wanting to do ever since I tried it the first time back in 2000. Now, the roadblocks of that, they can be kind of tricky. When you're doing it all yourself, you really have to work at it. I don't think I was really ready to try to do it all myself the first time. Like, I really should have gotten another job when I did it the first time and built it up from there. Instead of just trying to go ahead and jump out and do everything all at once. But this time it's going a little bit more smoothly. But I've got the editing to fall back on. I've got a lot more knowledge about how the book industry works. It's a lot easier for me to do it now than it was back then. But it's definitely a learning experience. Along the way, I've learned that you really should just try to go to any and every writers' conference out there just because it's a conference. And you could spend all this money for airfare, rent a car, for a hotel room, and then not make your money back on the other hand. So I've learned not to just go to every single conference just because it's out there. Pick and choose carefully. And I've also learned that as much as I want to trust everybody, you have to be careful when you're going into some kind of an arrangement. There's been a couple of times where people who I thought should be trustworthy weren't, and ended up getting ripped off a couple of times. Probably less than other folks I've heard about, so I really can't complain. I've heard some true horror stories. And I really haven't been taken for that big of a ride compared to some others who I've talked to. I mean, there are great promoters, literary persons out there, and then there are a few out there who are ruining it for all the rest.
Exactly.
They're putting themselves out there as being literary promoters. They say, okay, we're going to put this event together, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but you pay your membership or whatever, and then they can't deliver the event and they don't want to give your money back. Or if you ship books ahead of you, you have a hard time getting your books back. Just things like that. So I've had a couple of experiences like that, but overall it hasn't soured me on the whole process. It just taught me how to pick and choose. So it's definitely been a few roadblocks like that, but it doesn't stop me from being able to trust somebody if the situation is required. I've learned how to do my homework a lot more and really research the situation before I put myself into it.
I mean, do you have any events coming up yourself?
There's a few things I'm working on. And recently, I was at a book signing where Victoria Christopher Murray and Rashonda Tate Billingsley were promoting their latest book. And while I was here in Delaware, and I noticed that there were a bunch of other authors who identified themselves in the audience. And Victoria and Nick, they had to stand up because she hadn't seen me in a while. She asked if there were any other authors. When these other authors stood up, I had no idea And there are these particular officers out there, they're doing the same thing. So we're getting organized now. We're going to make sure that we're helping each other out. We're going to try to get some events together, do some signing as a group. I know from experience doing group signing, it can work a lot better. When you're helping each other, you're cross-promoting each other, and everybody's getting their name out. It's a win-win situation, really. We're going to definitely start doing that once we figure out, okay, well, what are people's schedule? What can we do first? I mean, and I'm thinking if I didn't know that so many other officers were out here, then the rest of the state really doesn't know either, except for in their particular circles of influence. So we've all got our circles of friends and different people that we're around. So you got to figure if these particular officers on my circle's radar and vice versa, then we're all going to do well together. So that's one of the focus can happen now, and that will definitely help. Just get some events going now, but as each of us has a new release coming, or even a particular author doesn't have a new release, they just want to focus harder on getting their current one out. We can do that. So that's one of the things that's going forth now. As part of that, I really would like to teach some writing workshops. I've done that at a few writers' conferences, and I know it can help the group and anybody else who we happen to find out there who's interested in the process of writing. There's one I teach on editing, there's one I teach on self-publishing. So I want to do that as part of this. They can see whoever knowledge they want to. We can help each other with that. Then that's really going to push us ahead as a group.
See, that's pretty cool. Keep me informed on that, and I'll put that on my calendar, and I'll also promote it on the show.
Okay.
Now, finally, now, where can we go? Could we go to your website? What can we do to get to know you, buy your books, learn more about you and what you do?
Well, my website, www.writevision.biz, WRITEVISION.biz. There you'll find information on all my books, and my editing service, and just basically get to know me. That website. So I have a featured author page where different people, I'll focus on different authors whose books I want to help out. A lot of times I'll participate in blog tours where authors will reach out. Hey, if anybody want to stop at my book tour, I'll do that for authors that I know, and I can help them get their books out there.
All right. Okay. What advice would you? What final advice would you have for those trying to get to where you are now?
Well, for anybody who's interested in writing or editing or some combination of both, I would say if you're going to write, find some time to write every day. I mean, we make time for what's important for us. So if writing is something you just can't help but do, find some time every day to do it. Even if you only have 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes worth of writing that you otherwise might not have gotten done. Definitely study the craft. I mean, I always recommend when people are asking me which direction should they go, should they try to self-publish their book, should they try to get traditionally published? I would try self-publishing just to learn the industry. You can always go in with another project and try to get traditionally published later, but it helps to know the industry from the inside out so you can have your full range of options out there. You learn as much as you can. Don't be afraid to ask some questions of people. Don't be afraid don't be upset if somebody you reach out to might not have time at that particular moment, but they might have a little time later to be able to answer your questions. Yeah, definitely. Don't let people tell you that you can't if you can't make a living as a writer. You can. It just depends on what kind of writing you're doing and how determined are you to learn everything you can learn and put it into action. So yeah, definitely don't let anybody talk you out of it. If you want to. If you know that writing is your passion, chase after it.
Yeah, I like that. So I want to thank you. Hold on one second.
I really hope you enjoyed the interview with Maurice M. Gray. We come back, we'll have our interview with Elissa Gabrielle.
When we come back, we'll talk to Elissa Gabrielle. Later in the show, we'll have a special word about H.C. Campbell's new show, The Artist's Corner. We'll be back. Have you checked out the Author's Corner lately? You've the best show you're not watching. Every 2 weeks, we bring you author interviews, news, and the best of the industry. With special guests, no wonder it's the fastest growing show around. There are 2 ways to check me out. Log on to my website at www.hdcampbell3.net or my YouTube channel at hdcampbell1230. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Do you need a manuscript edited? Perhaps you need a press kit or some ghostwriting done. HD Campbell Productions will offer the most professional services at the best price. We also do book trailers, publicity, newsletters, and more. Check out more in the online marketplace section on my website at www.hdcampbell3.net. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell. I'm here at the St. Louis County Library still because I'm here. I just want to let you know there's a local event coming in, so we'll get a lot of things. I'm working on some things right now. This is the Author's Corner today. Next, I want to give you Elissa Gabrielle. She's the owner, founder of Elissa Gabrielle Almari.
My father, who is Joe Thomas, is a jazz musician with 9 albums to his credit. And he wrote a song called Peace in the Storm. And he read the words to me, and he played the melody to the song on his piano. And it just touched me so. And I think at that time I realized, even at the tender age of 8, the power of words. To always say that words and sounds are my life. I do think that music feeds the soul, and words do the same. So it was at that time that I started to write poetry. So I started off as a poet, just writing poetry at the age of 8. And that progressed. Over time, I created a poetry book, and then I moved on from there to write a screenplay. And then I moved on from there to write novels. So it was just a natural progression starting at the age of 8. So I've been doing this about 30 years.
Okay. Let's go back to your childhood for a second, because like a lot of us, like a lot of us, you started at a very young age. Between the time of when you first started writing to your first published piece, how many things do you think you've written or put together?
Oh, that's so interesting. Let me think about that. Wow. I would say hundreds of poems and a screenplay even before I was ever published in a poetry anthology. I think when I was about 19 years old. So it had to be hundreds of poetry pieces and then the one screenplay before I even was published. Sure.
Okay. One more question, and then we'll come back to sort of the present. What was the screenplay about, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, it's about 3 girls who grew up in North, and the life and times and the trials of what each one had to endure to make it out of those streets in North. And it was based on the time where crack had become very prevalent in the heart of Newark, and it was one of the leading cities in the country with that epidemic in the early 80s. So it was called Divided Souls, and it was about 3 sisters' journeys to getting out of that environment.
I like that. Have you ever tried out there, or have you done it?
I did, and then I decided that I would convert that into a novel, and I haven't done that yet because I have so many other projects before that. But I did several years ago, and nothing happened, but it wasn't supposed to happen at that time. So we'll see what happens in the future with it.
Well, I'm wishing you the best with that. If you do, let me know, and I'll basically put a blurb on it on my website and on the show.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you so much.
I mean, the least I can do for you coming on my show. I mean, it's just wonderful. So now let's bring you over to the present. Give me how many books have you published, and tell me about each of your books, starting with the first one.
Well, as a publisher, I've published over 30 books. For me alone, I have been published in multiple poetry anthologies. a couple of erotica anthologies, a Christian fiction anthology. I have 4 novels to my credit, in addition to the 2 books of poetry. So, it's over 5 novels, 5 books of my own that have been published. But as far as me being a publisher is concerned, I've published over 30 books so far.
Okay. And when was your first published book?
My first published book was Stand to Be Counted, and it was a book of poetry in 1998. Isn't that a long time ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was my first book in hand, a book of poetry called Stand to Be Counted.
Okay. Well, you published 30 books, like you said, as a loan and as a publisher. First,
over 30.
Over 30. Now we're going to get into. Tell me a little bit about the origin of Peace in the Storm. How did you put that together?
Well, I had published 2 of my novels, excuse me, and I wanted to do a Christian anthology. And so I put a call out for the Triumph of My Soul. And that's where I met Cheryl Lacey Donovan and Lorraine Alvia and Jackie Moore and so many wonderful authors at that time. And so it was a natural progression. When we were done with the anthology, Jackie said, look, are you going to publish any other work? And I said, well, I hadn't thought about that, but, show me what you have and we'll talk about it. And so we did. And then Cheryl came with her book idea and Lorraine came with her book idea. And that's how really Peace in the Storm Publishing was born, where it included authors in addition to myself. So it was always there because it was always me. But at that time when we published The Triumph of My Soul, Jackie, Cheryl, Lorraine, and Ebony Monique, I don't want to leave anyone out. They're like the founding members and authors of Peace in the Storm Publishing. And so that's how it started, all around The Triumph of My Soul.
Okay. Well, in addition to your books, are any of their books apart? I mean, have you published any of their books or anyone else's books individually?
Oh, sure. Lorraine Alvia, her first book was Mistress Memoirs, and that actually won in 2009 for Breakout Author of the Year for the African American Literary Awards show. And Jackie's first book was me, and her first novel, Serving Justice, won for Romance Book of the Year at the same award show. And Cheryl's book, The Ministry of Motherhood, won for that year too for Nonfiction Book of the Year with the African American Literary Awards show. And then Ebony's book, Suicide Diaries, which is her first novel, that was nominated for Breakout Author of the Year with the same show. So we had a stellar year, our breakout year in 2009, and those were many of the authors, the founding authors of Peace in the Storm. That was their first books.
Oh my God, that's got to be amazing, especially for you as a publisher. How did that feel?
It was just surreal. It really was. It let me know that I was onto something. I was doing the right thing. For me as a publisher, it means so much to be able to help someone fulfill their goals and dreams and to take them from manuscript to masterpiece. It's an exciting process for both of us. It's not, it's not something that's just there to excite the author. For me as a publisher, I get excited about them with their work and for them, and I'm happy for them to produce their work. It's a thrilling process as we work together as a partnership to see that book come to fruition.
Well, one thing that I admire about you, and this is an observation, correct me if I'm wrong, through the name Peace in the Storm, to all that you do, you have everything for you is a faith-based thing. Everything for you is you're very spiritually grounded. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but basically what I'm driving at is, how does your faith
fit into all of this? Because personally, from outside looking in, I see your faith is very strongly grounded in this.
Right. Well, I always say when I'm joking with someone, I say I'm just a sinner saved by grace. And I'm not perfect, and I work on my salvation daily. I would not be here if I didn't have strong faith in God. Things that I have been through in my life may have torn the next man down or left him at rock bottom. So I know it's only through God's grace that I am here today. I often say you see the glory, but you don't know my story. And it's true. Most people don't, except for those people that are really close to me. So I'm a walking, living, breathing, living testimony of God's grace. And so that's what you see is just a thankfulness there. Some people challenge that because I do write in multiple genres. But if you look at me as a whole person and you don't sparse it and you don't take out one part of who I am as a person and you look at my entire existence, you would understand that I know that it's because of God's grace and His mercy that I am here today. So that's what you see. It's just a thankfulness and it's just a gratefulness that I have because I know what it could be. It's really as simple as that.
Absolutely. Now, I'll say this, then I'll move on. Usually when I research authors and I know about authors, I do a lot of research, but a lot of my research about you basically comes from other people. Maurice M, who's also in this show, has said a lot of great things about you. I mean, there are people that are watching you and they have nothing but good things to say. So you must be doing something right.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry?
It's wonderful to hear that.
Look, if anybody has anything bad to say, I'm not hearing it. I didn't hear it. So it's like you're doing something right. And I wasn't even going around. Basically, I know what I see from you. And I see you posting all the time, doing interviews, promoting, doing a whole lot of things. So basically, God has to have a part of that.
Of course, and absolutely, because we can't come this far without it. I firmly believe you cannot move forward in life without having your faith intact. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect. I fail on a daily basis, but He forgives me on a daily basis, and I'm given a chance every day to get it right, and I just love Him for that. So you have to have your faith. It has to be strong in order to do what I do and to overcome what I've overcome and to live the way that I live. You have to have that faith. I wouldn't be able to do anything without it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now my next question comes into going into you have this publishing company. You run a very solid business. You're what I give people like Keisha Green this mantra. You're a superwoman. You do so much. You do everything. You're a publisher. You're an author. You take care of home. You do everything. How do you keep all that together?
That's a good question. It's just how you live in your daily existence and you just do what is required of you. You don't really say, okay, how am I going to do this? You just do it. It is everything that you just mentioned is very important. And some things take precedence over the other, depending on what day of the week it is. But you have to find time to make sure that everything is handled properly and with consistency. So if it's a day where I have to be an outstanding wife, then that's the day everything gets put aside and I'm my husband's wife. If it's a day where Naya Moore or Cheryl Lacey Donovan or Lorraine Elvia needs me as their publisher, then everything gets put aside and I am going to be their publisher for them that day. So It varies in order of importance depending on what's going on, but it all gets handled. I don't forsake one thing for the next. I'm always a great wife and a mother, and always a good publisher. And I just try my best every day to get it right. And the reason why I can say I'm always good is because I'm always well intentioned. Like I said, I fail on a daily basis, but I make time to try to get it right in every area of my life.
Well, if we weren't doing this interview, I would basically tell you, I would basically say, I don't know why you're telling me this because I already see it. But in the basis of the interview, I'm going to let that go. All right. All right. Now for my next question. Do you have anything coming up? Any new books coming out? Anything going on with your authors? Any events? Anything?
Oh, sure. What I am working on right now, well, for my author, the first one up is Naya Moore. Her book is Major Jazz, and that comes out April 8th. Right after that is Chains of Deception by Jackie Moore, and that comes out in May. And then in July, we have The Wildlife by Stacey Deanne. And then a project that I'm really excited about, which is Pillow Talk Duets. And it hasn't been done in our industry in this format and in this manner. So it's 7 duets. It's 14 authors and 7 duets. And each duet has co-authored a romance and erotica story for the anthology. And so I'm really excited to be able to pull that off because it hasn't been done before, and so I'm so stoked about it. My partner in the book is my dear friend Rory Sheriff, and we had such a good time writing our story, Hiding in Plain Sight. And each duet's contribution to the book is just so good, and I'm anxious for the public to read it.
Well, if you want to come back and you want to talk about the book, you're more than welcome to talk about it. Cause those are, basically all these are good titles. And I would love to talk to each of these authors whenever you feel the need for me to. So I'm loving this. So my next question: any events coming up for anything going on?
Yes. I think the first event is Jackie Moore's release party, and that's going to be in Detroit in May. We're finalizing a date now, and that's for the release of Chains of Deception. We do have a virtual release party for Naya Moore's Major Jazz, and that's going to be on April 6th. So if anyone goes to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Peace in the Storm Publishing, you'll see information about Naya Moore's virtual release party. We're going to have prizes and giveaways and things like that. I will be in Detroit with Jackie in May. I will be in North Carolina in November. I'm actually putting together a tour schedule now for myself. I don't have it all finalized, but I will hit Texas and North Carolina and New Jersey and New York before the end of the year.
Okay. One of these years, you're going to have to fit St. Louis in there. But I don't mind traveling.
Okay. I love that.
It's okay. All right. Well, now, my next question is, if I want to learn more about Peace and Storm, get to know you, your authors, buy your books, how can I get in contact with you? Where can I go get information about you?
Oh, sure. The easiest way and the most informative way would be peaceinthestormpublishing.com, and on the website there's information about each individual author and all of our books. There's an events page there, so you'll see where we'll be signing and what we'll be doing. So that's the first place to stop is peaceinthestormpublishing.com. Then after that, and it should take you to our Twitter page and our Facebook page, and we try to remain really interactive. And if you reach out to the authors or reach out to us on any of our fan pages, we will respond.
Okay. I wanted to ask your opinion on something for a second. I've been starting to ask authors this for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about quote unquote competition among the African American authors?
Well, there's no need for competition. And I know people say competition is healthy and it's motivational, and that's not really true in our industry, because if you look at it with truthful clarity, and if you look at it with common sense, you'll know that there's room at the table for all of us as authors. No one is going to read an Elissa Gabrielle novel 20,000 times. They are going to go from Elissa Gabrielle to Nia Moore to Jackie Moore to H.D. Campbell. Where does the competition come in? It just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And this is how I live my life as an author and as a person in general. And you'll hear me say this from time to time. Is I'm looking to my left and I'm looking to my right and I'm looking behind me. And I'm trying to figure out what everybody else in the world is doing with their lives. Guess whose life I'm not paying attention to? My own. I'm not looking forward to see what is in my destiny and what my future holds for me as an author and as a person. So I really don't look to my left and I don't look to my right and I don't look behind me. I'm always looking forward. So when it comes to competition, I feel like I don't have any, because why would I want to compete with my sister who just put a book out? My job is to support her. And if I can't support her, then I have to get the hell out the way. There's no competition there at all. And none of us should feel as if we are in competition with the other. We need to be in competition with ourselves to make sure that each book that we publish and that we write is better than the last one. So at the end of the day, the competition, if it has to be any, is with ourselves and ourselves only.
Amen, and I fully agree. Thank you for weighing in on that for me. Now, I'm going to ask it again. Do you have any words of wisdom for anyone, any new writer, or anyone trying to get to where you are right now?
You can't give up. You can't give up. Never, ever give up. And usually in our lives, we always hear something from someone and they say, well, that's not for you, that's for them. That's for that person there, that can't be for you. You have to throw all of that, to the wayside and let it fly over the wind. And you have to move forward in the direction of your dreams. And you just can't give up. You can never, ever give up, because you're absolutely deserving of everything that's coming your way. And you have to go get it.
Yeah, when we come back, I want you to meet Almari Jonson. Again, she's not only just a wonderful, driven author, she's also my voiceover lady. So before you go to commercial, you get to hear her speak and introduce herself.
After this short break, the Author's Corner will be back with yours truly, author Almari Jonson, and later a new show update.
Check out all the latest titles from HD Camera Productions before the new title is released. There is something for everyone. Have a romance, track down a killer, or stop an international incident. Check all of my titles at your favorite bookstore or at Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, or discounted at the online marketplace section at www.htcampbell3.net. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
What is H.D. Campbell Production, you ask? It's a collective of editing services, books, promotion, and more. Find out more about these services in addition to shows and columns at www.htcampbell3.net. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner. I'm here at Bonita Park, City Park. This is one of the many parks around here where you basically can play basketball, play tennis, a little bit of everything. You can have lots of fun here. For my last author, again, she's not only a wonderful voiceover artist, she's a very talented author who basically has authored, like myself, books of many genres, including science fiction, which I tend to like, one of my personal favorites. So without further ado, we're going to go to the park for a minute, and you guys can listen to Almari Jonson. And what first influenced your writing?
I would say I was about 10 years old. I remember a project we had to do where we collected poems for a class project. And I just kind of got inspired by a few of the poems, and I said I could do it myself, and I did. Then I was inspired also to write a book on how I felt about different subjects and genres in class. So I did like a small skit book for my class. And that was just exciting for me. And ever since then, I just kind of wanted to express myself through writing, and I've done that.
Okay. And was there anything or anybody that kind of jump-started? It was just that one event?
It was really just that one event, because my teacher said, I'm kind of impressed that you would even want to do that, because most kids just want to go to school, have time, recess, run out and do what you want to do. But I wanted to stay in and read more and write more and just kind of explore what was out there.
That's pretty cool. Well, I must say, you and I have so much in common, in so many things, personally, and on the literary road. One of which are you're a multi-genre author. So, could you tell me what genres you write and what inspired each of those genres?
I have dabbled in children's literature. I wrote Peanut Butter and the Friendly Martian, and most of that was for my children because my son had an obsession with peanut butter, and we kind of loved Star Trek. I like science fiction in any way, horror movies, alternate universe, time travel, that sort of thing. And as a woman, I would just not be a woman if I didn't love romance. So I like to mix it all up together and come out with just different wild creations. What inspires my these genres, I guess, just imagination. I like to do things that are different and just to explore something that's not been done before. I love that.
So, when were you first published?
I was first published in 2009, and that was a book of poetry, and it was passionate.
In fact, before I go any further, you sent us a poem last night for us to read, and it was very beautiful. So she is a very beautiful poet. Just to let everybody know. You are so welcome. You're the one that wrote it, so don't thank me. Thank yourself for writing such a beautiful piece. So.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, that is.
I kind of want to give a sneak peek for my new book coming up.
Well, if you ever want to give any more sneak peeks, let me know. I would so love to hear some. All right, my next question is: go ahead and give me the names of your titles and give me a brief synopsis of each of your titles.
Okay. The first book was Passionate, a collection of poetry. That was just a collection of love poems, political kind of reaction, and just life experience. The second book was Thoughts, Desires, Passions, which was basically all love poems. The third book was Peanut Butter and the Friendly Martian, and it was a children's book about love, trade, and sort of, I guess I want to say, friendship with a child and a Martian and how they had common interests. And it was just a really nice story. My fourth book, which is coming up, will be Cascade, and it's called Cascade Poetic Discovery, which is love poems and life experiences. And I also have my first novel, which is called Soul Shadows. Soul Shadows is it's a story. It's actually a love story within a time travel and a sort of, I want to say, conflict. And that'll be coming out, I will say, probably later September, because I'm still kind of shopping for a publisher on that one.
Okay. Now, when I asked you to give me a brief synopsis of each of your titles and ask what inspired your genres,
I'm going to omit my next question to why these genres because you gave an excellent reason why you chose each of these genres. I actually want to go on to my next question because this is a very important question, especially among us as African American writers. Um, we have so much of a lack of black science fiction, and but we have so many science fiction authors, but they're not known. And I'm sure you know as well as I do who Octavia Butler was.
I do.
What do you think about the black science fiction genre?
Well, I think we're just disappointed because all we really want to focus our attention on is, well, what's mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to allow our imagination to flow. We want to capsule ourselves into, I hate to put it, in just so much neighborhood, church, conflict, drama, that sort of thing, but we can't reach our mind
Absolutely.
in a different, we just won't go that way. And Octavia Butler, not only did she reach out, she reached beyond. And it was so refreshing. It was just sad that her talent wasn't recognized sooner. And I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. And I was disappointed that there were so many authors that came about, I mean, even with Oprah's exposure. And they weren't nearly as explosive or as wonderful or just able to reach such an audience as Octavia Butler was.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like I always have said, we have to begin to appreciate each other before other people can appreciate us. And if we can at least make our communities reach out and touch the science fiction side and not so much of the drama side, then maybe we'll explode on the scene a little bit more. And if we can use our talent for everyone else, we should use our talent for ourselves, and then we'll give each other some more exposure.
Absolutely.
But I think the whole thing is exposure, because science fiction writers are so hidden and so frowned upon. And as soon as you say, "Oh, I write science fiction," it's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So and it's just so hard to explain it. And why do you always have to defend and explain things that aren't drama, romance, boys in the hood, that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many other things we can write about, and so many other areas we can reach if we just open up to it.
Well, look, you basically preaching to the choir. A lot of times, while I have a lot of readers of my books, I still have a lot of those that still don't understand the mystery suspense genre or the espionage thriller genre that I write. You know, because it's especially the espionage thriller genre, because it's like when I first brought that to the market, I found that I was pretty much so the only one that I know of bringing that type of genre out. you know, if as far as African Americans go. So
I just don't like the way we're shadowed, because it's like we can never be the forefront character. We always have to be the supporting character.
mm-hmm.
And I think we've just accepted that, and we don't want to step out and say, "Well, I'm going to write a lead character in a story that's not typical." Like, I mean, you always expect us to just, be the supporting cast. We're never the cast or the person who's actually involved. And I think if we can just kind of expose ourselves more and support each other a little bit more, I think it'll kind of happen. But we have to start supporting ourselves and stop expecting so little of ourselves. And I think that's the main issue.
And you're exactly right, Amari. It's a matter of, I guess, I talk to this all the time. I talk about this in many interviews. I've talked about this morning with another person I've interviewed. It's all about supporting each other, because we're all we got. But when we don't support each other, that's where the problem lies.
Right. I agree.
So, like I said,
to be so critical. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think we are growing, but there's a lot more that we have to do to get where we need to be. So we are growing in that respect.
Well, I just hope we continue to grow because, like I say, if it I mean, basically, you help me with what I'm doing, and I'm going to do all I can to help with what you're doing. It's a matter of, number one, taking away the competition playing. See, this is one thing, my work isn't going to hurt yours. Your work isn't going to hurt mine because we both write different stuff. Even if we wrote the same genre, well, we
Right.
both write romance, but we write two different types of romance. My romance isn't going to
Right.
hurt yours.
Mm-hmm.
So, so if we take competition out of the equation, I think we'll be okay.
I think so too.
So, so my next question is: so do you have anything? Do you have anything coming up with your new release?
I have a few book signings here locally in Florida, but I haven't set up anything so far. I'm just kind of exploring my options right now. The book release will be April 9th, so, and I'll have that everywhere. So I have that on my Facebook page and my Twitter, and I'll also do a couple of blasts in a couple of newspapers nationally. So it'll be exposed or it'll be advertised.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put you to work here. Eventually, soon, when you do have those, I want you to send those to me, and I want you to voice them. That way,
So I will.
we can have them as a community calendar on our show that I'm going to have coming soon. Um, my next question: beyond the current book that's coming out, do you have any more future titles that are coming out?
Right now, I don't. The only thing that I'm really pushing is Soul Shadows, and I'm still shopping for a publisher for that one. It is completed, but I just kind of wanted to branch out and see if I could get somebody else to do it for me.
Okay. Oh, and before I go on, I wanted to ask who published the other books?
I did two of them myself, and one was done by Little. It's a company here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Now, we're gonna put you on the spot here for a second. In addition to being an amazing author, you have an amazing voice, and I've taken that voice because you've taken on a new role for me. Could you tell everybody what that role is?
I do your voiceover for HD Campbell Productions.
Okay, and can you give everybody a sample of your work?
Let's see. Welcome to HD Campbell Productions, where we're doing Authors Corner, and we'll be interviewing authors and providing programs and editing services. That's the best I can do right off the top of my head.
That's just good. Before I go on to my next question, I'm just letting everybody know this is the voice you hear. If you hear my promos, if you hear "Welcome to the Authors Corner" with HD Campbell, that way you don't have to hear my voice all the time. So now you have a pretty, huh? I'm sorry.
Just the lighter side.
Right, exactly. So you got a pretty voice you can hear now. Don't have to hear me all the time. So that's what makes it all worthwhile. Um, so when you're not writing, when you're not doing voiceovers for me, what do you like to do?
I love the beach. Have to go to the beach. It's something that everybody should do at least once a month. I do it once a week. I crochet. I read a lot. I volunteer to certain organizations to do creative writing and freelance writing. And other than that, I'm a mom and a railroad worker. Other than that, I'm just, same old person.
Well, you're very sweet to me. I really like you, so very sweet to me. My next question, if I wanted to get to know you or know about your books, so where can I get them? Where can I get to know you?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. My following is ALMARI67. Send me a message anytime. Any questions, I'm always available to answer them. And I'm very easy to, anything you want to ask. I don't have anything to hide, or very, very willing to do interviews or help in any way I can.
And you do a lot for me. Also, too, I like an author who's very accessible to her fans and her readers.
Always.
So that's a big plus. Now, do you have any final words of wisdom for people who want to be where you are or who's just getting started in the business?
My only advice is never be afraid to dream. Never be afraid to express your ideas and never be discouraged by criticism. Only use it to critique your own work, but don't ever change. Because what the critic may tell you might just sharpen your edge. It shouldn't dull your edge to their perspective. Always be aware of who you are and what you want to get across.
Okay.
But always dream and keep going.
Okay.
Walking through the neighborhood is kind of tough. I think I'm going to sit here, and while you guys take a break, I'll be back with some writer's advice.
We'll be back with a word about a new show from H.D. Campbell Productions.
Check out all the latest titles from H.D. Campbell Productions before the new title is released. There's something for everyone. Have a romance, track down a killer, or stop an international incident. Check all of my titles at your favorite bookstore or at Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, or discounted at the online marketplace section at www.htcampbell3.net. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Have you checked out the Author's Corner lately? It's the best show you're not watching. Every 2 weeks, we bring you author interviews, news, and the best of the industry. With special guests, it's no wonder it's the fastest growing show around. There are 2 ways to check me out. Log on to my website at www.hdcampbell3.net or my YouTube channel at hdcampbell1230. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell. I'm still here at the park having fun. Been walking around my neighborhood. Like I say, been having fun. Got a chance to pass the police station, do a lot of other things. But now I'm at the segment of the show where I get to give writer's advice. So we're going to talk about relationships for a minute. These are the relationships we build as authors. As authors, we build relationships with other authors, our readers, and those of us who are professional editors, our clients. So let's talk about that for a second. The reputation you build actually helps you with your book sales, with getting more clients, etc., etc. Among fellow authors, quit the competition. I do not like competition among authors, especially us as African American authors. We may write the same genre, but we don't write the same type of stuff. My romance may not be the same way you write romance. My mystery may not be the same way you write mystery. My espionage thriller may not be the same way you write espionage thrillers. So the point I'm trying to bring about here is there needs to be a brotherhood, a sisterhood, some type of thing, some type of medium going on to where, hey, we're fellow authors. There's enough room at the top for everyone. I always like to quote Keisha Green. Keisha Green and I always talk about this. It's always each one, teach one. She's a wonderful author, and she always believes in giving back. And she always agrees to do interviews for the Author's Corner. In fact, she'll be doing a future interview for me here soon with my anniversary show. Well, that's it for the Author's Corner. Come back in 2 weeks when we have 3 more powerful authors. And for now, here's a preview of my new show and what's it all about.
H.D. Campbell Productions presents The Artist Corner. It's a new debate topic show with the art in mind. Watch as panelists from the local St. Louis arts, business, and legislative community debate topics from St. Louis's rich art culture. You never know where we might shoot. Viewers will get a chance to choose and debate the topics themselves at www.hdcampbell3.net and on the show's Facebook page. One of the panelists may read your comments on the show. Check for updates at www.hdcampbell3.net and on the Artist Corner site in coming weeks. In the meantime, let your writing fuel your spirit.
It's going to be a killer show, and I really hope you stay tuned for it. Well, that's it for the Author's Corner. Peace. and hair grease. Let your writing fuel your spirit, and God bless. I love you all.